You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and technology. I'm your host, Dimitri Bitsa. I'm also the CEO and founder of Rock, Paper, Scissors. We are a PR firm that specializes in music tech. And if you've been listening to our rapid fire mini-series of episodes that we've been putting out since the COVID-19 pandemic crisis has hit, you'll know that we've been doing a little bit on remote collaboration and mobile recording, mobile music making, some of the things that we think that creators are picking up in the midst of this crisis. And we're continuing that series. Today I've got with me Grant Tilbury with Tracked. That's Trackd. He handles artist relations and A&R. I believe you're calling in from London, aren't you? How you doing, Grant?
I'm indeed. Hello, Dimitri. Very nice to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Let's just jump right in. What is Tracked for anyone that hasn't heard before?
Well, Tracked is a unique music platform. It's where artists create and fans can discover all in one place. We're a social recording studio in your pocket for iPhone, iOS. For artists, we provide a simple and intuitive app to create, collaborate, and gain inspiration from thousands of artists working around the world remotely. And we also have some social sharing tools such as our virtual vinyl and video creation directly in the app. And for fans, it's a place where you can get unrivaled free ad opportunities to engage with artists from start to wherever they are in their career.
Gotcha. Great. Okay. Well, we'll get into the details of how that works, but tell me about the origin of Tracked.
The historical origins of Track kind of go all the way back to 1968. So our CEO, Russell Sheffield, his father and his uncle ran a recording studio in London called Trident Studios, which was the world's first 8-track recording studio. So we kind of are the modern reincarnation of that. We developed it back in 2015. And we developed it to sort of serve as an artist sketch pad. So, musicians and songwriters could lay down their ideas on the fly as they move around the place and collaborate with one another. So the whole ethos is centered around songs start here. It's where musical ideas can form, and you can develop them. It's the start of their journey through us, essentially.
It's pretty cool to hear that long history of Trident Studios leading up to this, because Trident has such a amazing reputation, having been the spot for some pretty big name artists from Queen to David Bowie, Elton John, and so forth. And now here you are in the midst of this world where anyone can record with their phone. That's a pretty crazy origin story.
Yeah, thank you. We're very, very lucky to have that heritage. And it's inspiring for us to work at Tracked, as well as artists around the world kind of learning about us for the first time. It's to bring some of that magic into sort of the 21st century is great.
So if I want to record a track on Tracked, what do I do? How simple is it? What's that look like?
Really simple. Try and make it as simple as possible, obviously. So the first thing to do is to get onto the App Store. Type in Tracked, that's Trackd. Download the app, install it on your phone, go through the sign up process, and then go to the record screen, which is right bottom of your phone screen, right in the middle, and hit new song. And then you'll have a big square in front of you, or 4 squares in front of you, and each square is a track, and you just hit record and record your idea directly into Tracked using the mic on the phone, so you don't even have to plug anything in.
And then you can add a second track from there?
Yeah, you can multi-track. So to do that, plug your headphones in, and you can multi-track your ideas up to 8 times. We also have a way to swipe and bring in other people, which is the social element. So you can do this all privately, and you can swipe in your bandmates or other artists that you want to work with. So you can find people within Track that might have a unique skill set. So you might find a drummer or a bass player or a vocalist to work on your idea. And you can do that from within the project screen. You can sort of bounce ideas between each other and create songs.
So for the individual tracks, say of a 4-track recording, how do you sync up the rhythm, the beats, so that you guys are all together, whether it's you re-recording a second time or bringing in a track from a collaborator from remotely? Is that hard to do?
No, it's not. You've got to record settings within the app. So you find the record settings, which is in the project screen, and then you can put a click track in, for example. So you could set your BPM. You can put your sort of click counting in as well. So you can have that as your baseline to record to.
Gotcha.
Or a lot of people just kind of do it from feel, really. So that's we find it. We find some people use the click track, other people just sort of use it by feel, and they develop the song maybe outside a track later on. It's just to kind of get the initial sketch of ideas down in the first place.
So it's probably good to count in at on the first track that you add, so that whoever's coming in to collaborate next can also count in at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd recommend that totally.
Yeah, cool. And just to be clear, these are like recording separate layers of tracks. There's no real-time collaboration across the web or anything like that.
No, not at the moment. This current version of Track, you basically push your ideas between one another like you would a text message. So, we were finding when we were developing Track that most songwriters were using voice notes on their phone, which is great, but there wasn't any real way of multi-tracking that or easily sending it between people and organizing your files in such a way. So that's kind of like one of the sort of starting points of the ideas was how did people do that easily? So yeah, it's a kind of push and pull mechanism where you sort of, you send your track across to your collaborator. They might add their idea and then send it back to you.
Got it. How much editing can you do within the Tracked app?
At the moment, it's all about capturing the moment. So we've got like a mixer in there, so you can kind of mix your ideas between one another. We're working on a completely new suite of sort of editing tools, which are going to come in the next version of Tracked, which we're really excited to share with people. For the moment, it's quite simply a simple sketchpad where you can record your ideas, you can mix them loosely, really well actually. You can mix individual tracks up to 8 tracks, and pan it left and right, and it's a very kind of sort of basic editing features at the moment, which we're looking to develop.
It's funny. I remember being in high school in New York in the 80s and I went to a high school for music, and I had friends who had 4-track recorders that were pretty big devices that had tape, like actual tape-based, cassette tape-based recording. And it's so crazy to think about how much more accessible this is than that. I mean, to get a 4-track recorder back in the late 80s was pretty expensive. What does it cost to get tracked?
It's free. Yeah, it's free as long as you've got an iPhone at the moment. It's free to download. So I mean, yeah, that technology you're talking about then is what used to be fairly expensive for people to get hold of is now available to anyone with an iPhone, and hopefully soon Android as well, which we're working on. But yeah, it's funny you should say that. I mean, I used to work in guitar shops, and we had the Tascam 8-track recorders, and then Boss made one with a CD, which was kind of groundbreaking at the time. Which was real fun because when we had downtime in the guitar shop, me and my friends who worked there, we would just record music. One would lay down a bass, one guitar, and we'd have fun with that back then. I think as well, I'm not. I mean, I love the band, but I'm not I don't know much about their history. But I've heard what people have told me. Bands like the the Postal Service, used to record on an 8-track machine and mail each other physical cassette tapes. So pretty much exactly the same workflow as Tracked is right now across the United States to one another when they were sort of working remotely. And I think that's what inspired their name. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, if
I didn't know that's where the name came from. I know the band; they're a great band. Yeah, it's interesting how your story about working in a guitar shop, having access to this equipment, and probably while you're on break or waiting for customers to come in, here you are laying down tracks. But just having access to the technology that allows you to collaborate even face to face it's a game changer for how you start to think about music, arranging music, composing music, building a band, building a repertoire, and so forth. And we talk a lot about accessibility on Music Tectonics, about how when technology allows for more people access, what that can do for creativity. And that's an interesting thing to think about right now as we're in the midst of the COVID-19 isolation, shutdown, all that kind of stuff, which we'll get into a bit. But just briefly, how's the workflow for recording via your mobile phone with Track different than, say, a home studio or a more traditional DAW setup?
DAWs are massive engines, music making engines, and they're incredible in what they can do. We kind of see Track as kind of like living alongside that kind of thing. So with this current version of Track and the version we're working on at the moment, you can easily import and export files. So say you're looking for something at the top line, you can bring in a file, MP3 or WAV from Pro Tools or Cubase, whatever you're using, and then you can put it out for collaboration amongst our sort of community on Track. DAWs are a massive editing engines, and you can do amazing things for them. So we're going back to our kind of ethos. Songs start here. We're about just kind of getting that raw idea down in the first place. Sometimes as well, when you record something on a phone, you get a real special take, and you might think, "Oh my god, how do I recreate that?" You kind of sang it in the moment, and it was really kind of raw and beautiful. You can maybe just export maybe a vocal stem into your DAW and treat it there. And mix it in with whatever you're working on. So, there's a couple of, I've come across a few artists that use it in that way.
That makes sense. Yeah. So what kinds of things are emerging as a result of this mobile device studio setup, that easy on, quick capture stuff, and also the collaborative part across distances as well? What are you seeing emerging?
We're seeing a whole types of cases. I mean, it's quite exciting to see on some of our kind of social channels, people connecting with one another, obviously through the app, and then developing like online musical relationships. That's happened quite a bit between music makers and singers and vocalists, for example. Seeing bands come together. One of the main complaints at the moment is we're not on Android, so some band members have iOS and others have Android, and obviously that's a bit of a pain point for us at the moment. But
hey, you're creating FOMO.
Yeah, absolutely. You can look at it that way. But yeah, there's a band for example, we came across an amazing rock band in Reading called Belarus, who I absolutely love. I've seen them a whole bunch of times live and stuff now. So Reading's just outside London here in the UK. And they were recording demo ideas on like an unknown social platform similar to Instagram. I can't remember the name of it, sadly, but then they discovered Track, and they were kind of pushing ideas back and forth between each other before they went into the rehearsal room. So there was a whole kind of case of that where artists were using it privately, so not using it to the public social functions of Track, but they were kind of bouncing ideas between each other in the week, because they all went to separate colleges and schools and stuff at the time. I think they were like 16 or 17 while they were doing this. And then on a Saturday, when they had their sort of weekly band rehearsal, they'd come together and they would kind of, streamline rehearsals in a way which kind of allowed them to develop ideas much more quickly. And it was more, it was quite cost effective for them as well, not having to spend the extra money and time on hiring the rehearsal space. So yeah, that was really interesting for me to see how it was functioning with a band like Belarus.
That's interesting what you say. It's almost like I think about any kind of communication methods, and you did compare Track to text messaging, where we talk about synchronous versus asynchronous communication. And, it can be very frustrating to have asynchronous because, like in an email communication, there's a lot of back and forth to move the conversation forward. And one person might be there sitting at their computer ready to do something, and somebody else might be somewhere else, so you can't communicate. But you flip it on its head and you say, well, sometimes you get better ideas when each individual person has more space to breathe, more time to think and create. And so with this asynchronous versus getting in a rehearsal space together, you may have a whole new creative process that opens up. So that's pretty interesting to think about, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think given time, you can play with ideas. So when I say, for example, you pushed me a song idea and you wanted a lead guitar line or something, I can mess around with it for hours on end before I'm happy with it to send it back to you. There's no kind of I don't think there's any kind of time restraint on it. Obviously, unless you're sort of saying, "Look, I need this by tonight." But yeah, there's no kind of, I guess, there's no kind of pressure in that sense, and things can sort of develop with more kind of trial and error and all that kind of stuff.
So how far can you get with recording this way? Can you release a professional sounding track? Has anybody done it?
We've had people release music on Spotify. Who've kind of gone, this has been recorded on track. There was a busker in Barcelona called Marcus K, and he he posted a video the other day. Actually, I think it was called "Homage to the Buskers." I think the name of the track, and he kind of posted it across his various channels, YouTube and Spotify and stuff. Which was quite cool. But I guess it kind of depends on what kind of music you're creating. So I can imagine if you're someone like who writes beautiful songs like Daniel Johnston did, for example, that low vibe thing, you could totally record it straight onto track and then get it out to the world. And then anyone, I guess anybody requiring a bit more intricate production or heavy production would need to kind of move it into a studio environment or DAW environment to finish it off.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I think the answer to your question is yes. I think people can release stuff directly off track. What we find, not many people have moved it into that, into a place where they're uploading it to some of the DSPs just yet. But we're finding people doing more and more of it. The more downloads we do, and as time progresses, people are taking their work off track, directly off track, and putting it into those. Putting it onto those platforms.
Grant, I'm curious about your opinion on this, because as I think about more access to making music, recording music, collaborating, releasing music, all that stuff, it makes me think we had this older model where you had a studio like Trident Studios, you had a producer, an engineer team, you may have a record label, a management team involved. There's a lot of kind of gatekeepers, and you kind of have to reach a certain bar, both in terms of the quality of your music, the timing and relevance of your sound, and also maybe a little bit of luck or business acumen, one of those two, to put that team together to get access to a studio where you could make something that sounds decent. As we have these, hugely powerful recording devices in our pockets, it almost starts to feel a little bit more like a blog post, a social media post, a tweet. Like we're recording music that does not have a high bar, really easy, quick to get to market, doesn't have to hit all the same types of maybe quality checks. Do you envision that, just you personally, Grant, from your observation as an artist relations person within a company like this, do you envision that releasing music's going to feel a little bit more like a Facebook post at some point?
I think it, to some extent, it already is. In terms of people sharing ideas and stuff. I personally find though that most artists who are releasing and consider themselves, recording artists, they have their own level of kind of self editing and quality control, and they want it to be as perfect as they possibly can before they share it with the world, and rightly so, because obviously the quality of a song or a track, maybe not in a production sense, but maybe just in a sort of arrangement sense, or it's something that is personal to artists. And I'd argue that most people would want to kind of make it as perfect as possible before sharing it on any channels, just because I think that's what ultimately is going to benefit them personally in the long run, with building a fan base and all that sort of stuff. But it is becoming a lot easier now just to throw anything out there, like a Facebook post, for example. But I still think, my personal belief and view is that I think, the better material will always sort of rise to the top and garner more attention. You can put pretty much any content on any platform at the moment within reason. As long as it's not hateful or anything like that, which flags platforms to pull it down. But with track, I kind of mentioned the whole kind of. But no, you're going about the embodiment of the studio. You'd have like the label department, and you'd have the engineers, mix engineers, and producers. We're trying to bring some of that kind of magic back into our thinking with track. So we're seeing the app and the studio app as the kind of the physical building of the studio, for example, and then we have different departments. For me, artist relations, for example, helping artists, nurturing artists with their songwriting and songs. Then we have a producer, in-house producer, who's also the head of music at the University of South Wales here in the UK, called Adam Richards, who advises our artists on production techniques, for example. We're also looking to relaunch the Trident Records label within the next year. So we're planning that at the moment. So there'll be kind of like maybe more of a traditional type record label functioning. We're trying to do it differently, so it's not doesn't function the same as a traditional record company, but there'll be sort of elements of curation and quality control there, and just kind of advise artists in the best possible way. To be honest, I think that's what we want to do, and hopefully that will produce some amazing music and results.
Yeah, nice. So, what else have we not talked about Track, the app itself? I know you've talked about the social function. We haven't talked a lot about that. Is there something that you want to fill in before we start talking about the business model here?
I think at the moment we're running this amazing competition with Dave Stewart from Eurythmics and the creator of NBC's Songland, who's been a massive champion of what we've been doing since day one. He's been there since 2016 and has been advising us on all sorts of things, from songwriting to connecting us with amazing people. And he's been running a competition with our artists during lockdown, where he threw up a stem. It was a sort of a 6-track stem. He opened it up for people to collaborate with him on, which has been amazing. So we've had hundreds of entries, and we're announcing the winner tomorrow. So that's been really, really exciting. So we're looking to do more of that sort of stuff as well.
Tell us about the business model. We haven't asked that question yet. How do you guys make any money from this free app?
Right, as you just mentioned, it's currently a free app. We have in-app purchases. So this is a bounce down feature, and unlocking the full 8 tracks. So when you download Track, you get 4 tracks, and then for 99 cents or pence if you're in the UK, you can access the full 8 tracks, and the same goes for the bounce down feature. So there's 2 in-app purchases at the moment, which has enabled us to measure features, whilst listening to our artists and what they want, to help us kind of grow what our feature set's going to be like in the future. So that's been the sort of current business model. The next version of Track will be a freemium-based subscription platform. So we're incorporating a 2-tiered user acquisition model for creators, a tier with limited access to features, and a supporter tier accessible through a subscription. So supporters will have access to the whole suite of new features and services. The free and premium tiers will work independently, yet they'll be critical to each other. Free promotes scale and will be a crucial ingredient in the acquisition of more paid subscribers. And then we also believe discovery fuels engagement on the platform. So we want to keep discovery free to everyone at all times.
Got it. So what kind of traction are you seeing on the app on Tracked? You have a lot of users?
Yeah, well, we're currently at 270,000 users across 161 countries.
Wow.
And that's pretty much been organic, actually. Apart from the marketing we've done, at places like South by Southwest and Meedem, where we've engaged with artists and done various activities. So we're really happy with where we're at the moment with that. I mean, since lockdown, it's been a terrible situation for so many people around the world. And for us, being able to provide a service like Tract is, we've seen a big uptick in downloads in the last month. I think we're up by 230%.
Wow.
My colleagues tell me month on month in minutes at the moment. Yeah, it'll be interesting to sort of see what music comes out of that now in the coming weeks.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that, at this moment where people are limited in what they can do, they're not driving, they're not shopping or going to restaurants or bars, not going out to concerts, music minded people, um, they have some time on their hands, and so making music makes sense. There's no excuses now, right? Um, and especially with the kind of the first point of contact of recording as easily as possible with your phone makes a lot of sense. It'll be interesting to see what habits change as a result of this worldwide shutdown once things start opening up again, and I don't know when that'll be. It'll be interesting to see, if people maintain those habits. I mean, it's certainly, to me, it certainly feels like there's going to be a lot of creativity happening now, and that even when things open up again, there'll be new habits formed. And there's this time period now where people are trying things that they might not have tried otherwise, but they will forever be changed as a result of learning new skills or trying out new workflows or habits. So that'll be interesting.
Absolutely. I've sort of noticed just in my day to day with the work that I do, I've noticed a lot more. There's a lot more kind of questions on functionality. There's artists coming to me, asking, "Can Track do this or that, do that? Can you plug me in with other people to help me build this song?" We've been running this kind of weekly hangout session on Zoom for all our artists in the community, which has been really fun because we're kind of sort of seeing more and more people getting creative and writing songs, and that just wasn't happening before this lockdown. Or it was happening, but it wasn't happening on the sort of scale that it is now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, you mentioned a couple of sort of artists. I'm curious, are there any other success stories that you're seeing so far, either in terms of artists or recordings that have come out of Tract?
We've seen quite a few, namely from like sort of known artists. There's a rock band here in the UK called Blossoms, brilliant band from Manchester. Um, they they posted all of their original demos from their first album on Instagram with the Track virtual vinyl, which was a massive. We didn't know what we completely unexpected, but we thought that's absolutely fantastic. It's exactly what the kind of stories we like seeing. Artists who have recorded their demos in their mum's kitchen. And then obviously going on to record them and becoming successful artists in their own right, and then sort of seeing how the demo recorded at home sounds in comparison to what actually ended up on the record. That was really cool. We've seen, I mean, I mentioned Dave Stewart already. He's been a massive champion. He's a massive champion of new songwriters and artists anyway. He got together with an artist on our on Tract back last year called Iris Gold, who's like a Danish hip hop soul singer. She's absolutely amazing, full of energy. And they came together on the app and they recorded, and they're going to be releasing music together soon, which is great. And yeah, we've had lots of different types of stories. Another one I'd quickly like to tell you about is we did this campaign with a charity based in London called Never Such Innocence, and they were doing they were running a campaign called Songs of the Centenary, which was all about commemorating the 100 years since the end of the First World War. We did a very special project with them. So there were a whole bunch of schools around the UK and what is now the Commonwealth. So places like Canada and Australia. There was these road shows and workshops across the three bands of the military, so the RAF, the Army, and the Navy. So we took sort of school children onto a battleship, for example, in Portsmouth, onto an RAF base up in Scotland at Lossiemouth, and the children wrote songs with songwriters through in person, and they went back and they refined it on track. And we supported that whole campaign from sort of start to finish, and it culminated in an amazing sort of ceremony at Buckingham Palace back in 2018 on November, and it was really special to sort of see these children who had recorded their song on track, then go and perform it live, at the Palace. I mean, there was one particular song that was done by the children of Lossiemouth High School, who recorded a song, and then they were with the RAF Saloon Orchestra, and they ended up performing it live in the Queen's Music Room, which was an unbelievable moment. So it's very varied, from sort of rock and pop people through to sort of education programs like that. We're seeing all sorts of different success stories come out of it.
That's cool. It's cool to hear that this isn't just a remote mobile kind of thing that's used for kind of these less common use cases, but see that it works into the workflow of real life stuff in terms of education or just band rehearsals and that sort of thing as well. So, well, we're coming towards the end here. Are there any other things happening on the platform? Any other unexpected use cases you want to share before we wrap up?
We're seeing lots of people sharing these virtual vinyl, which was quite exciting. It was one of the sort of simplest fun features on version 2 of the app, and seeing people post their song ideas on Instagram with a virtual vinyl has been great. So that's something that was fairly unexpected when we started out. That's turned out to be something quite interesting and fun and engaging.
So this is their opportunity to create something on track called virtual vinyl, and then push it out to other social platforms where people are going to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. From the project screen and track, once you finish your song, you just hit export, and then it gives you 5 options. Push it to Facebook, push it to Twitter, email it to yourself, post it to the track feed, which kind of opens it up for collaboration with the track community, or make a video, which basically bounces it down, bounces it to an M4A file, and then there's a spinning virtual vinyl disc that sits in your photos bank on your phone, and then you can share it with whoever you want.
Awesome. That's cool. So it's a new kind of visual representation of the audio track, kind of a different take on, say, the role that SoundCloud had played in the past, where people just want to put a track up and share it. They can share it this way, but with more of a studio feeling on the inside of Tracked.
Yes, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there.
And then do people come in? Have you found that people come into Tracked as a result of having seen that virtual vinyl on Instagram and elsewhere?
Yeah, I've fielded many an email and phone call from people who've kind of gone, "How do I do that?" Because that's kind of been the motivation to download it in the first place. So yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely user cases of that kind of that being the main motivation for people to to check out what we're doing, and hopefully they'll find all the other features as well and kind of go, "Oh, actually, this is great." And so the community is sort of developing week on week, and it's good to, and it's really kind of inspiring to sort of see how people are engaging with it, and for me personally, listening to all these new songs and demos is something that's it's something that I personally enjoy.
Yeah, tons of fun listening to seeing what gets created and seeing how people are sharing it and engaging and all that stuff. Is there a hashtag people can find those virtual vinyls? Or is it all over the map?
Hashtag tracked music is something that we've been featuring these virtual vinyls with. So yeah, it's hashtag track TRACKD music,
and that's what people will look up Tracked on the iOS App Store to try it out, right?
Yeah, that's the one across all the channels. Yeah, it's tracked music. And then if anybody wants to talk with me directly, I'm quite happy for them to email me. My email is grant@trackedmusic.com, and I'm happy to do Zoom walkthroughs and and tutorials with anyone who's interested in checking us out.
Awesome. Well, this has been a blast, Grant. Thanks so much for taking the time to tell us what you're up to, what the Tracked community is doing, and to sort of explore some of the ideas of where this all might go. And look forward to seeing what happens next. I've played with the app. It's fun. It's got a great interface, and I hope folks will check it out and explore there. Thanks, Grant.
Well, thank you so much, Dimitri. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, stay safe out there.
You too. Thank you.
And thank you for listening to Music Tectonics. Please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app and sign up for our newsletter. Check out our blog. We'll keep you posted there. Thanks again. We'll be back with more episodes soon.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.